Hey everybody, welcome to Season 10 of Surface Level, curious conversations about the Black and queer experience. I'm one of your hosts, Damon, and today, Jordan, Tony, and I are discussing our varying views on non-monogamy. So as tribute to our first season, Season 10 of Surface Level is called Gurl, Grow Up.
You have to figure out for yourself what it is that you want. I don't want to be a prisoner of my own desires or in a prison of my own desires. I want to be able to explore things freely without it being a problem.
I've never wanted to spend my life worried about what my partner's doing when I'm not there. If you're having fun when you're not with me, that's your time as a person. And I want you to have that time as a person, no matter what it is you are or are not doing.
I have one rule, don't embarrass me. And so for me, I just feel like I have a lot of insecurities around and a lot of fears around what could go wrong. It's like, bitch, I'm scared.
This is, girl, are y'all open? So, after 4.5 years, 9 seasons, 106 episodes, I believe, a myriad of guests, and a community we're building 1,000 strong, we've made it to Season 10 of Surface Level.
Yes, range. That's what you call range.
1,000 strong.
1,000 strong, child.
Wow.
So I'm curious, is this what you all saw from our little pandemic project that we started in 2020?
No.
I saw something.
I saw something. I feel like, no, when we launched season 1, I was of the
limited series.
I was of the, we are giving 10 episodes and it's our gift this is our gift of expression to the world. But we're back 10th season now. So,
yeah.
No, I didn't plan for this.
No, me neither. I thought it was a gift of expression to ourselves.
It was for me.
Maybe one person.
If one of y'all got something from it, good for you.
Maybe one.
Y'all, I hope you're all the better for it.
But yeah, it's been like you said, 4.5 years, and so I definitely didn't see us being as consistent as we are for 4.5.
This is a
years.
job.
It truly is.
And like I barely made it to the studio today. So it's a wing and a prayer, but we're here. And
But by hook or crook.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad.
So as tribute to our first season, Season 10 of Surface Level is called Gurl, Grow Up, where we're revisiting the 9 original topics from our first season to see how we've grown, visiting some very directly and expanding conversations further for others. In Season 1, we had an episode called Call Tyrone and My Therapist. I love that title. Where we talked about how we approach romantic relationships. So today we're going to take that conversation further by discussing our evolution on non-monogamy and the nuance between our views today. But before that, we're going to go way, way back with a little update to a game from Season 1.
Okay. What did we play in Season 1?
We played a game called Music Therapy.
Okay.
So it was like songs that helped us get through all these different things. So this one's just called Girl, That's My Song. The Whitney and Mariah edition.
Okay.
So you will get a variety of scenarios, and I'll give you a Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston song, and you'll say like which one you feel aligns more with you.
And for the purposes of this game, I'll be Whitney and Jordan will be Mariah.
Wait, I'm not following I don't know enough Mariah.
Who doesn't know enough Mariah catalog? She has 19 number ones.
Oh my God.
I mean, I know the songs, but you
should know the hits.
Okay.
You should know the
When you got that many hits, you know Mariah Carey songs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Nobody's going to ask you to sing any
you're
verses.
already into character. He's giving, I don't know her.
That well.
All right. So the best song about being completely sprung, I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston, or We Belong Together, Mariah Carey.
So we have to choose which one is our favorite.
Which one makes you feel like, which one is the better song about being just completely sprung over somebody?
Although I do love I Have Nothing. Oh my God. But We Belong Together was just such a
moment in time.
She's telling the story. Mariah is literally
Isn't that the
telling
video where
story.
she's in like her original wedding dress and she's running through the field? I mean,
that was the comeback.
The Emancipation.
Song too, right?
It was the comeback.
No, the comeback song was
Album.
You Like This and You Know It. Action, I'm lotion. Like that is the first single.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Turned it.
Boom, 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 boom. That's a better lead single.
I love that. And Shake It Off too was my jam. So I do know.
Fun fact: the only reason Shake It Off didn't go #1 was because We Belong Together wouldn't move.
Look at that.
Right.
It only went to 2. The icon, Mariah the Carey.
Yeah, I would probably say present day, probably I Have Nothing, just because I feel like that's been having like a resurgence on and like within internet culture, and it's like top of mind. People using that like I have nothing for a meme. So like that's more like top of mind. I feel like I would go to that song right now to, be sprung out.
Okay, that's what the girls sing on TikTok. All right, so
it's like TikTok. Okay.
The best song about unrequited love: Breakdown by Mariah Carey or Saving All My Love for You by Whitney Houston.
Ooh,
Saving All My Love
for You.
I love Breakdown, but Saving All My Love a few stolen moments. And wasn't that like, I mean, I think of that song as like her first song that was like in my head. It's like one of her, like from that first album that was the Whitney album.
I think the first album was Whitney.
Yeah. Okay. And that song just brings me back to like the beginning. Yeah, Unrequited Love.
I go with Breakdown. It is my favorite, like how does that it's a song with Bone Thugs and Harmony. Breakdown. It's like my favorite, like non-#1 Mariah Carey song.
It's a great song because in that song also, Mariah is telling the story again, and she has a way with words. She uses the biggest words. When I say big, they have a lot of syllables, and just like, yeah, she's telling the story there too. So
the best song about heartbreak. Heartbreaker by Mariah Carey or Heartbreak Hotel, Whitney Houston featuring Faith and Kelly Price.
Heartbreak Hotel. I mean,
she's such a drama queen. She mean, this is the
I mean, that song is just, Kelly Price,
Faith Evans.
It's just, yeah.
Okay.
That song does it for me when you really want to get into your sad bag.
Tony.
Right. And no, I'm going to go with that one too. I love Heartbreak by Mariah.
Yeah.
But Heartbreak Hotel, when she's telling the story in the beginning, you said you'd be here by 9, but instead you took your time. Like,
you're cheating on me, baby.
And they're on that beach.
Throwing that mink in the ocean.
Yes, I got.
When she throwing that mink in the ocean is like Mariah Carey in that wedding dress. Absolutely. It's one of those images where I just go, bitch, work.
Absolutely.
All right, so last one. The best song about moving on. Exhale, Shoop by Whitney Houston, or Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey.
Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey.
Always Be My Baby is arguably the greatest Mariah Carey song.
It's such a great song.
It is.
When it comes on, it's just like the crowd goes up. I can
all the way to the end.
Yeah.
You and I. And it's just it's simple. It's one of the few Mariah Carey songs you can sing along to.
It's a great song.
Sing along to all of them.
It's a great song. I will say
My
though,
All and Mine Again. I go off on those 2 songs specifically.
And now we're gonna have a new segment called Jordan Sings. Let's go with Mine Again.
There's not enough liquid in my mug.
Well, Jordan's always doing a riff that no one asked for.
Nobody asked for that.
That's artistry. You give people what they don't expect. You give what you can offer.
Okay.
What you feel from right here in your chakra.
Okay.
Something I've never heard you say before.
But I do love that shoot, that waiting to exhale moment.
Everyone falls in love sometimes.
Yeah, how can you make
sometimes it's
a
wrong.
song that like this that's just like shoot.
See, I didn't have time to write the chorus.
There's an interesting story behind that.
Yeah.
I feel like I was just listening to that
Babyface.
Babyface wrote the verses because Whitney wasn't gonna do the soundtrack. She didn't want to sing, I think, on the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack. So then she was like, okay, maybe I'll sing. So then she sang the verse and he was like, I ain't got the chorus yet. So they just said shoot as a fill-in. And then she said, Babyface, it sound like you finally ran out of words. And they liked it and they just left it in.
Because what is shoot?
It's feeling. It's in your chakra.
Like,
right. No, we didn't ask questions before. We just sang along with it. We knew what it meant.
Yeah.
My Lord.
It's a great song too, though.
All right. So moving into our first combo for the season. So we are now in healthy long-term relationships. And this is, as a part of that, we've discussed our embrace of varying levels of non-monogamy, monogamy, how different ways in which we look at our relationships. So we want to start with kind of what that journey looked like for you and what life experiences kind of brought you to the point you are now. Jordan, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, so I wasn't always on the non-monogamy train.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a very long time, I was just like monogamous. This is the way it needs to be. And mostly just because I'm pretty much like, I'm going to try it the way that I feel like it's tried and true, like the way that they're like, this is the right way to do it. But I think what really stuck out for me was former relationships. So in more than one relationship, there's always been like a moment where there has been a conversation around sexual incompatibility. So whether or not like I want to try, like for example, if I want to try something new, right, that's not really like the norm in our sexual routine. Like if my partner is not interested in participating with that, like I'm respecting their boundaries, but at, on the opposite end of that, like I'm unfulfilled. And so for me, it was getting to a point where I was just like, how much should I be negotiating this? Especially if I feel like this is really making me feel like unfulfilled in the relationship. And I feel like that those past experiences has made it very important for me that when I'm dating, that I'm very clear with the person about the fact that I'm open to non-monogamy, right? And I want to make sure that they're also open to it. I'm not so prescriptive as to like, you need to let me know exactly what it looks like now, or you need to give me a time frame now. But as long as I know that someone's open to the concept of it, I can move forward. But I think that there needs to just be, for me, there needs to be flexibility there. Just because I feel like in the past, I really haven't had much luck in navigating sexual incompatibility within a long-term relationship.
What's your new wild stuff you want to try?
The what?
He said, I want to try something new. What?
I mean, I didn't say wild.
Vanilla. But I was like, vanilla switch. What
Not
was you?
wild.
No, I mean,
I'm like, what kind of?
If you just want to try something different, like if you
Even a different person.
even bitch, sometimes, but also like if you're in a dynamic where maybe you assume one specific role most of the times, and then you're just like, oh, I'm actually like going through a different phase, and I want to be a bottom, or I want to be a top, or I want to try something different, and that doesn't really line up with where the partner wants to have in terms of like their sex, and it's just like, okay, so what now?
What now?
Like, so even that,
I'm gonna be cheating, and you the reason.
Wow.
like I'm just like, how does this work in reality for like a very long period of time? You know what I mean?
Some would argue it does not. I would argue it does not.
Argue what is not.
It does not. Like when you ask that question, when you're in that space of, okay, we are not completely, but like we're quite unaligned right now, and not for good or bad. Like I'm not saying one thing is good or bad.
Yeah,
we're just unaligned. How does this work? That doesn't really work.
Yeah, it doesn't. And so if you can't, for me, if you aren't able to have that conversation, or if you're not open to that conversation, or if you like avoid the conversation and just shut it down, it doesn't leave you with many options to talk about it. Like this is a partner that, for me, I think that sex is sometimes too prioritized in relationships. Like I think that people are like, oh my goodness, if there's infidelity, that is like the ultimate bad thing. You got to throw the relationship away. Otherwise, you're a dumb bitch. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, but there's so many other parts of the relationship that I think are so much more rare. Like, actually being compatible from a values and interests and life goals standpoint. Like actually just enjoying the company of your partner and just like wanting to tell them about everything that's going on in your life, bad, good, whatever. I'm like, these things are the things that I feel like are so much more rare than me being able to find some sort of sexual connection with somebody. I feel like that's more common. So for me, I'm just kind of like, let's actually like make sure that we're saving the part that actually really matters, which is our dynamic, and stop putting so much pressure on sex, which I feel like is something that doesn't need to necessarily be this like this thing that's like a huge deal breaker.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned people look at like infidelity as like the worst thing in the world, and I think an experience with infidelity is the thing that led me to realize I don't give a fuck about monogamy. Like, or I don't, for my own life and my relationships, it's not the structure that I've wanted. It's not a structure that feels honest. I've been in other relationships where, like, because I grew up in a household, for clarity, where my parents were together for like 40 years, they met in high school. It was just like, okay, this is what you do. And something always didn't feel right for me in that. I tried it and I was just like, you're cheating. And I'm upset, but I'm like, why am I upset? I'm not actually upset.
For a second, I thought you were saying, still referencing your parents, talking about
your father was cheating.
I was just like, what upset? Like, what made you feel like it's not right about watching two people in a union together that are exclusive?
No, my prior boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, still friend, cheated on me, and I was like all up in arms, and I can't believe this happened. And I'm like, and then I got back down later on after I calmed down, and I was just like, I don't care. Further, like, why did we set our relationship up in a way that centered priorities that like neither of us actually believe in? And like that actually was the impetus to he and I circling back some time later and becoming friends and like still having relationships today, because it was just like we were mad about something that wasn't even true to who we are.
Yeah. You thought you needed to be mad.
I thought we're told to be mad.
Well, they're mad in the movies. You know, you throw the plate at the wall. You tussle. You scream at each other. People get put on timeout. You leave. And
then we need to be mad at each other for lying about what we really wanted, not lying about the actions which came from us not being true with who we were in the first place.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, the journey towards living in a more non-monogamous space was a slow burn, because it wasn't something that I ever really considered or thought about. It was kind of like over time, hearing about other people's experiences and then figuring out for myself what I really wanted. And to throw something in the conversation that is a little bit of like the opposite spectrum, I found something on Reddit where this person said that I disagree with the idea that wanting a monogamous relationship is heteronormative. I think that highly promiscuous people are a particularly visible minority among gay men, which I thought is interesting. They're saying that people who are out there having more sex and stuff are a minority in our community. But they're more visible. They say that there's nothing inherently hetero about wanting an exclusive, committed relationship. It's all just a matter of personal preference. And to that, I kind of say yes. Yeah. It's like what you have to figure out for yourself what it is that you want and what's a deal breaker for you, what's not. How does your body respond to real life situations when those things come up? And for me, kind of like a little bit of what Damon was saying about not wanting to, like, why am I upset about something that I realize I don't really give a fuck about? It's not that upsetting to me. I don't want to be a prisoner of my own desires, or in a prison of my own desires. I want to be able to explore things freely without it being a problem. And who's it a problem for, right? I don't want to have to answer to anybody. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. I don't want to have to answer to anyone. If I want to do something, I want to be able to do it because I said so. Yeah. Yeah. And not have to explain or feel bad or have any shame around what it is I'm exploring.
There's also something in that quote that was just like the quote highly promiscuous. We can parse words later, but using the words they used is like the visible minority. Like, it's the thing I'm always saying. Like, everybody's like, I sit here on this podcast and then 20,000 people will say back to me, y'all shoving non-monogamy down my throat. No, it's just me. And all of y'all in the comments hollering about how you want to be my man, my man, my man. So please stop it with the everybody's non-monogamous thing, because I think it's bullshit.
I think that does point out, like, the visible minority is a concept that has come up.
It is more interesting and more left of center and more easily engaged online to talk to me about my non-traditional relationship than to hear another person say that we're in a monogamous one, because you've heard that story a million times. And I think that's why people jump into it as if like it's I I don't know. It touches on something that you don't feel often. You can find a million movies about gay, straight, whatever, about finding the love of your life in this person and the white picket fence and like that kind of thing. But like, and we were having a conversation. I can't remember what episode it was, and they were like, if you could write a story, what would it be? And I was just like, I would write a story about a non-traditional relationship that ends well, it goes well.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like the story is, but I always had to come back to the one, and we had to live like in this fairy tale.
Yeah, there's not a lot of examples of that, and I think about Will and Jada. I was going to say Will and Jada Pinkett. Yes, that's her name. Yes, but
she's definitely one of those people you have to call Jada Pinkett Smith.
Right. So I just think about them as examples of they were. It was like spoken, or people knew about it, but it was kind of
their damn business, like it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the topic in general is just like very divisive. Like I feel like people just get really sensitive when the other group is talking about like what their views are. And I think that like I agree with the Reddit person in the sense that like, yeah, I do believe that there are people who actually aspire to a monogamous relationship, and that's truly what they want. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that everybody has the same relationship with their sexuality. Some people may just really only feel connected to that person that they're with, and that's who they want to have sex with. And to that, I say, have at it. Like, I want people to actually be really, truly happy in their relationships and fulfilled and satisfied. So if you're fulfilled and satisfied being in a monogamous relationship, do that. That sounds like a good decision. I think that it's when we start like telling other people like how they should be experiencing their sexuality in this like very declarative way, being like, you have to show up like this. Otherwise, like, I know you better than you, and I'm telling you that you're not living your truth. Like, I think that that's when it gets dicey. But I definitely also feel like sex sells. So if you're looking at the internet to be your gauge of what's sort of like the popular thing happening, just know that sometimes it's just that these sort of conversations are being amplified more because they're so polarizing and people are engaging with that content. I think that when you talk about monogamy, like, I think it's so normalized in general that I don't know that it gets the same amount of attention online as, you know, untraditional or newer relationship formats. So that probably is why the person feels like it's so much louder.
I also wouldn't say newer.
Well, newer to like public discourse, maybe. But I'm not
like
saying
people talking. I think
the girl's been carrying on, and okay.
No, I'm just saying like that. The conversation around non-monogamy has been something that's been more publicly talked about in the last couple years. Like it wasn't always a conversation out loud.
When we talk to like the generation that, you know, that's before us, they actually talk to us about like, you know, y'all are really open-minded. But it wasn't like that when we was. Well, so I do think that there's like newness happening around the conversation.
I think it's more reflective of the times in which you live. The generation that lived before us lived through the AIDS crisis when sex was demonized. If you were in a relationship, people were clamping down. The generation before that lived through the 70s and the sex revolution. And the conversations we're having today, a lot of those people were having then 50 years ago. So I think that it is more reflective, not just of like this. I don't think of time and relationships and things as something that's linear. I think it's more so reflective of what's going on around us. So like that's why I was making argument with newer.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So moving on, I think that we talk about how we have slightly varying, or maybe largely varying views, actually. But do you all believe that relationships should be for you? And this is not for universal you. To you, your individual point of view. I statements. Should let the girls know, because should be open from inception, or is that a future step? Tony.
Should be open from
day one.
Conception?
Inception. Not conception. The first time you all conceived.
From day one. So for me, I've only been in, I think, 3 actual relationships in terms of like we titled it. We put a title on it. We're together as boyfriends, a couple, partnership. And So the non-monogamy, more open format is newer with the person that I'm with now, and I introduced the conversation in the beginning, to the fact that this is how I want to navigate our space, and so it was like opening up the conversation, but saying, let's get to know each other first. I don't know. It's hard for me to put like a time frame on like, okay, now
we're ready.
The doors are open.
Now's the time.
Like, when does it happen? So I think it's just best to say from inception, for me, it's like from inception, we're open. When that happens, I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't really put any guardrails on the time. But I think it's best to go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off in the beginning, because then it's like, well, when it happens and it happens in the spur of the moment, will the other person get upset and be like, you ain't said?
What happens in the spur of the moment?
If you step outside of the closed format and say, like, you opened it without asking for permission. The door is open.
The door cracked open. I fell through the door.
I fell through the door. I had a sexual experience with someone else. When that happens, who knows when it's going to happen? I'm saying it's best to just go ahead and have it be open from inception, as opposed to saying, let's wait 3 months or 6 months. Let's like get to know each other for 6 months, and only have sexual experiences with each other. And then when that's on the whatever
January 1st.
day, now
you max. I've been doing a countdown.
What's the point of that? Because we can still get to know each other and do our thing while still existing in an open format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on the opposite end of this one, because I have timelines for that. So I lock it down at the beginning of the relationship for a few reasons, okay? Number one, I like to spend the first parts of the relationship just not even talking or like bringing in sex topics that I feel like I'm not super far along with yet. Like, so for the non-monogamy thing, this is something that I hadn't experienced before, successfully and healthily. So for me, it's just like, if I do this with someone, I want to really know who this person is first. And so that's why I want to lock it down first. I'm also just kind of like a pretty skeptical person in general. So like, I just need to really like be in tune with the person that I'm like pursuing a partnership with. And I feel like sometimes when I introduce sex, even if it's just like us having sex, not even talking about open relationships, sometimes I feel like my judgment can get clouded. And then I also just feel like even if we are open to an open relationship and we do have one in the future, who's to say whenever it closes back down after being open? And I want to at least know that me and my partner, I'm fulfilled and happy in a closed situation. So I think those are kind of like the reasons why I have it like it's sort of like we graduate towards non-monogamy. And yeah, so that's my preference going into new things.
Yeah, I mean, and also think that there's space to evolve, right? This is where we are right now with it.
Yeah.
And as we have experiences and as we go through life, that can change.
Yeah.
So it's just like how we landed on being even in this space right now.
Right, because before it was a non-starter.
We're going to roll it. Roll the tapes back. I aspire to monogamy. Roll it, find that tape. We're going to roll it back. We got a digital record now, baby.
Right.
You know what that's called?
We need a producing team because I would love
to pull that out of the archive.
Right, because, it was giving none when I first started the show. And I wasn't really into that. But, everybody grows at their own pace. And I think it's important to also find somebody who's like on the same page as you and also patient with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? So for me, what I would do is probably not going to be the best thing for somebody who already knows how it goes and had great experiences with it, knows like the things to be mindful of, the things that are great about it. Just like, I'm ready. For me, I'm just like, I don't know how the fuck this is going to go. So I would rather like do a ease.
Lock it down.
I would rather ease on down.
If anybody described anything, like, I think we should lock this down, I'm running out the door.
What?
You are in jail.
It sounds like prison. But no, I it's interesting. I was listening to you talk, and you use the phrasing, I'm not sure about how comfortable I would be with the non-monogamy or how it would work or not work. But I feel like it's interesting that then like the fail-safe is to go into monogamy, which is the thing we're defining as not having necessarily worked, to prove that the other thing can work. Does that make sense?
I think it kind of, I'm going to respond to it. You let me know if I'm responding to what you just said. I think that what I'm struggling with is sort of like a fear entering into non-monogamy. I think that it's less about like, are we open with having like sex with other people? And there's so much more baggage that's on top of that. I think it's like certain things that I'm considerate about or thinking about when I'm thinking about non-monogamy is like, how does that make my partner feel? Does my partner feel like because I want to pursue this that I don't find them attractive? Are they going to resent me for it? Is our relationship strong enough to deal with those emotions if they come up? And so for me, I just feel like I have a lot of insecurities around and a lot of fears around what could go wrong. Because to your point, Damon, like when you see stories about non-monogamy, oftentimes it's always just like, I knew it wasn't going to work out.
Right.
They like celebrate the demise of it. And so I think for me moving into it, I'm just like, bitch, I'm scared. Like, is this going to be something that's going to be a nail in the coffin of our relationship? Or is this going to be something that's going to help us just like be able to live more exciting, fulfilling lives, and we can be like happier versions of ourselves? I don't know. Yeah. Like I can look at other people's stories so much, but I have to actually live my own experience. Yeah. And so that's where the reservation comes from.
Yeah, it's interesting. In my current relationship, marriage, like it's been non-monogamous from its day one. Like that was never an option for us. I think that both of us came to it very clear-eyed just about who we were in that moment, the type of relationship that would work for us. And I think one of the really interesting, if you ever talk to, well, you all have talked to my husband, but if people talk to him, one of the things he will often say when people ask about this, just like, I have never wanted to spend my life worried about what my partner's doing when I'm not there. And meaning that no matter what the hell else is going on, the focus of our relationship is when you and I are in a space together, either physically, digitally, via phone or whatever, what does that look like? How are we watering that? How is that strengthening our relationship? How are we being the best versions of ourselves individually together? Because that's how we always describe ourselves. So therefore, for that reason, it was never about, well, then you need to make sure that you ain't doing this shit when I'm not with you. I'm like, if you're having fun when you're not with me, that's your time as a person. And I want you to have that time as a person, no matter what it is you are or are not doing. You have the agency to control that. And that's just kind of been foundationally what we've believed in our relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I think I admire that you all think that way. I can definitely assert that I'm not there yet. But
know yourself, baby.
But we are trying to figure out ways to have healthy, like make good, affirming experiences that are just like, oh, that was an unlock. Like, that worked.
Yeah, I think then continuing on this train, are there specific rules you have around your partner, and them how they play with people you all may don't know, in close proximity to?
Oh my goodness,
Jordan.
The rules.
I have.
She said, "Lock it down."
Lock it down.
Lock it the fuck down. I have one rule. Don't embarrass me. Which is challenging.
I'm like, how are they supposed to know? You've been embarrassed easily.
So broad.
And you also get embarrassed for you get secondhand embarrassment.
All the embarrassment always just clings to me. And I can't shake it loose. But no, like, I just feel like, it's a laundry list of like what embarrasses me, right? Like, I don't necessarily, I overthink things too. So I'm just like, let's say that we opened it up and then you ended up having sex with somebody who I'm close with and who I have to interact with. Like, even if the situation is normal, I'm going to be in there like, looking at the person like, what the fuck is this? You know, like I got to figure out what's going on. Now I'm analyzing things. Like I'm wondering what they're thinking about me.
They're not thinking about you.
They might. They might.
Baby, that's embarrassing. If your man not fucking them good enough for them not to be thinking about you, that would embarrass me. I'm like, you need to be tearing them down. They can't think about nothing else.
I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just thinking about what are they thinking about me,
girl.
Now what are they thinking about you?
And so yeah, like I just for me,
I got news. Who gonna tell us?
No, I think that for me it's just I think the main rule is just like let's like keep the extracurricular activity like away from the circle of friends or circle of people that I have to interact with. That's from my comfort level. Mm-hmm. And then luckily I'm with somebody who also shares that same preference. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, you know, we're in, I guess, like doing too much for it. It's just like, no, we both align on this. We mm-hmm. both want to be like not looking at them in the eye, sitting down across from a birthday dinner with them. So I think that that's like the main thing. And then otherwise, I think it's just like, you know, it's like the standard stuff too. Like really being more cautious with sex health than you even would be if you were in a single relationship. And then also like you know, I think that having recurring time to like talk about it, like, and just like express what's going on. Like, cause we talked about this, like, how is it going to look like when we open it up? And we landed on this idea of like monthly check-ins, because I don't necessarily need to know like the play-by-play either. Like, don't say like, hey, I'll be back. I'm about to go, you know, around the corner. Like, now I'm thinking about this and I was just trying to watch my show. But like, if there's a time set aside monthly where it's just like, let's just talk about the experiences. Good, not so good, what's not feeling great, what's feeling amazing, what's exciting. And let's keep it contained in that. And then we can revisit it again in a month.
Oh my goodness.
Anything? We're gonna have a part two.
A reprise for you. I don't want to keep going,
but you know, we'll buy an extra hour recording time for you to finish your rules.
You start really, you know,
controlled.
And then as the experience unfolds and there's good experiences and positive experiences, we can then start to let go of some of the constraints. But, you know. It
sounds very stressful.
No, it's actually, it's not just because I'm in alignment with my partner. So.
Okay.
It's
good. There's somebody for everybody.
He listens to what I say.
No, when I text,
we actually share a lot of the same values around this. So
because I'm wondering is it locked down together, or do you lock it down, or is he locking it down? Yeah. So that was a lot to just process and think about. But I'm just thinking, like, for me. When it comes to people I know, I'm thinking about it in two ways. It's like people who are in my circle or people who I know this person in the streets. Yeah. Those two things are different for me. Mm-hmm. When it comes to like people that are in my circle, I'm like, there are so many people that you could be playing around with. You ain't got to play around with this set of girls, which is a small set. Mm-hmm. And so to me, like, I would prefer that not be a thing, because in my mind, it's like, it would just never, that's not anything that would even be on the table for like discussion, because we don't necessarily.
What you talking about? She dragged that wagon over here. It's going to be on the table.
It's just like, it's not something that we as friends really, we don't sit around having sex with each other's. Like, it's not that kind of incestual. not with each other, but with each other's. But we gonna get to that.
We're not gonna talk.
We're gonna get to that at a different time and place. It's the nonverbals for me.
Ooh, it's like when Kamala and Whoopi were on The View.
Yes, she looked at her and said, right. So for me, I think that, when it comes to like my inner circle of friends that I know, like, go play with some other folks.
Yeah.
But if it's just people that I know on the streets, I don't really care about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be people that you know on the streets that I may have played with. So let's not even start splitting hairs on things like that.
Yeah.
So what?
I said, so we agree.
I don't know.
Kinda,
Sort of.
You kind of.
I think
you double clicked.
I think when Tony said like there are friends in my circle and they're people I know, I think they extend to people you know for you.
Oh yeah, because I mean, mine don't have to be BFFs to be people that I know.
She said, if I know their name.
So if there's anyone that
not that if I know their name now. Hold on. I just mean people who are like either my close friends or like close friends to my close friends. Like it's kind of like a 2-degree of separation. But if it's something that's just like on the outsides, yeah.
That outside is Pluto.
outside of America.
Outer space.
This country. I disagree, obviously. But no, I just find that I find that I'm not ashamed of how I experience sex and sexuality. Neither is my partner. There are people that we both know that one of us, or maybe both of us, have had like sexual experiences with that we still know and we're still cool with, and it raises no problems. I also think that when we talk about sex, sexuality, opening relationships, and care that people place upon it, care exists all around. And when you're talking about if I'm maybe new to non-monogamy and so if there's a couple we know, which we've kind of talked about this, and they like engage with me specifically, and it's just like, oh, this seems flirty, and then you're like, why you stay away from that? Let them do this over there. But I'm like, who's going to have more care for their relationship, their experience, than someone that actually knows them? I think the thing that you're afraid of is more likely coming from this random person from God sees nowhere who may have bad intentions, who may be someone that is thinking maybe something negatively about you. And I know that that's maybe counterintuitive to think about it that way. But I think so often we kind of boil down the experiences with people to we almost make people objects. Like they're this thing that you did on vacation, or this thing that you do deep in the Bronx where we know that they're not going to run into anybody else that we know. And instead of them being persons with agency, persons with a point of view, people who, if they do interact with us outside of the context of that sexual experience, it enters it with some level of care and giving a fuck about me as a person or my partner as a person. So I think I get to it a little differently.
The anonymous non-monogamy.
No, because that's a good point. I'm actually going to listen back to that and put that in my notes for our check-in.
Don't bring me in
to be a blind woman.
No, because I think that is a good point, because I definitely noticed that in just my sexual attraction in general. I find that it's more difficult for me to be enthusiastic about having that sort of interaction with somebody who I don't have a good, firm understanding of their character. And so I think that, the things that I would have been into in my 20s and stuff like that, I feel like now I'm just kind of I don't have the time. Who is this person?
Right.
Who am I sharing this space with?
So now more than likely it will be somebody, maybe not directly in the circle, but circle adjacent at least. So then there's a discussion around what does that actually mean? When you have to marry your personal desires with the comfort you have in exploring a new structure of your relationship.
Yeah, we got to probably figure out what that criteria is.
Funny, it's an Excel sheet would drop down.
It's like a weighted criteria.
That roadmap.
See, so a couple more things. So is there a scenario where your relationship could once again be closed? I think you mentioned it a little earlier.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that this whole thing is, when I say whole thing, I'm talking about a lifelong partnership, I think is going to look different from time to time. And I'm only saying this just because I'm getting to the point of my friendships where my friendships have been around for 15 years. And I'm just these friendships have changed drastically. The way that I've sort of interacted with people, younger, is different than today. But to give a specific example, I don't really know when that time would be or what that scenario would be. I think that it might be when a major life thing changes. So for example, my partner and I are both interested in the idea of having kids. maybe that would be a time where we would reconsider what our like relationship dynamic looks like. And this is just me making an assumption of like, do I feel like closing it off will allow us to free up the headspace to be like really, really focused in on like building that foundational dynamic with this baby. But then again, I don't know.
I'm just like, I'm fucking at night. Baby should be asleep.
Well, you know,
fuck them kids.
I don't know.
This
what
is
I
when
don't
niggas
know.
be having kids and getting divorced.
Like
Lord
I would just say never
She
say
said,
never.
we had the baby
you know?
lock it down.
Lock it down.
You never know. I mean, you know, the introduction of a new
up.
child, it makes it impacts all relationships differently. Some people are just like, this was the gift from
Oh my God.
Yeah, and some
love,
people
and
be
it's
like,
magical.
buyer's remorse.
And the other person was just like, it's the most depressed moment of
You
my
know what I
life.
say?
Take it
Get
back.
a dog.
And those things play a part in like your dynamic with your partner, and like that's the person who you're raising the child with. So I don't know. I think something big like that.
Honey, I'm
would
like,
make
I
me-
got to get up out of this
It's
house.
got to be a life event.
It doesn't have to, but I think that's one of the things
That's
that
one
would
of-
that would
Yeah.
probably trigger it.
I think I think it's a fair assumption or thought.
Yeah, I mean,
Nah.
I don't know. 'Cause, I thought a moment ago I was going to maybe answer and say that the relationship could be closed again, but now that we're talking about it and in real time, I'm thinking like, for what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. If it's open, we'll be closing it back. What's the point?
I think.
What was the reason?
Well, but I also think that people over sexualize non-monogamy and open relationships. Like you talked about yours being open from the beginning. That doesn't mean that you've been out here in the streets running around every single day. It just means that I have the freedom to engage in something if I choose to.
Right. And also I think a lot of times when we have this conversation, it's solely around sex.
Yes.
And there are other ways to explore and be open. And maybe those things could be off the table or on the table, because intimacy is a big thing. You might be having the best sex in the world with your partner, but you have no intimacy.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Put it on a shirt.
Shook. And that's just the whole thing. Like I don't think it's talked about enough.
Yeah.
Because of the over sexualization of this conversation. Yeah. So yeah, to answer this question, I think if it's open, could there be a world where you might close it back up? Maybe, but right now I can't think of anything that would warrant locking it down.
They start breaking the commandments.
So I think actually that's a good segue into our last question. So the last question was, could you move from kind of an open, non-monogamous space into a polyamorous one? And for our listeners, polyamory is a type of non-monogamous relationship where people have multiple romantic or sexual relationships at the same time with the full consent of all parties involved.
Yeah. This is interesting. I thought about this recently. Someone asked me, and then would I be in a polyamorous situation? And I was like, I would consider it. Because I have examples of people that I've met that are in healthy poly relationships. And I was like, that seems like something that could be fun, potentially. Like, I like to keep things interesting. And I think that as I'm evolving, like I didn't think about monogamy or non-monogamy being something I would be open to in the past. And now maybe non-monogamy is a gateway to polyamory. But I think that it could be something potentially fun to explore, having multiple. Now that's a lot to manage. So, we have our calendars. That's a lot to manage as you group of girls. So managing a couple folks, what does that look like? I don't know what it looks like for me, but I'm open to the concept of it.
Yeah.
Coming into this conversation, my answer was going to be no. Just because I feel like, I'm still... I think the theme of this episode for me is baby steps.
I think you should be in a never say never phase more than hard no's.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going with that answer.
Okay.
That's why I'm not going with that answer, because actually a part of this conversation inspired me, which is that like, if one of my rules is that I want to be really careful about space, and I know that it's really important for me that I have like some level of like discernment towards this person's character and can talk about this person's character, then I feel like naturally I would probably prefer to be in a situation where it's like I can go to someone that I trust rather than going to several people that I may not be as familiar with.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, what is the natural evolution of having a recurring situation with a person that you trust and you feel like cares about your best interests? Like, does that then just become like, okay, my open relationship is actually just like me being allowed to like do something with this one person who I know, like, I don't have to worry about them. I know that I don't have to like sleep with one eye open. You know, I feel like I can trust them. We're honest about, you know, all the things. So like now, after listening to this conversation, no, I'm not closed off to the idea of it. I think that it's something that's further down the road for me, and I can't quite see it clearly. It's very blurry for me. But yeah, never say never.
Yeah, no, I was having
the door is cracked.
But yeah, I was having I was having a discussion with, this is funny, one of my husband's friends who they've had some type of relationship together that is polyamorous. My husband, we know him and his partner, he got another boyfriend. And we were having this discussion about polyamory, and he was just like, I was in the space of like, I kind of practice like a hierarchical, non-monogamous space. And he's just like, well, there were some interesting things he sent me this page called Decolonizing Love. And a lot of it, the things on it were talking about how structuring relationships that way it can be harmful. And I'm saying can be because I don't think it's very black and white, but a lot of it, and I mentioned it earlier, comes down to not representing the agency and the ownership that the people outside of the primary partnership have. And the whole interaction becomes like, how do we protect our primary relationship while picking this toy up and putting it down when we feel like it, or I can run around and do this when I'm away. And I think that as I maneuver relation and people, and I'm just more interested in what meaningful things look like overall. Like I feel like I was talking to my husband, I was like, yeah, I think I have a boyfriend. Like he'd be like, cool, tell me about him. And that if I was talking to my husband, if I was talking to my husband, I was like, oh hey, like I found a boyfriend. He'd be like, okay, cool, tell me about him. Like, and
this is hypothetical.
Yeah. And I think that that's where I kind of am in life, and not that I don't necessarily. I'm not actively doing that right now. One, because I think you mentioned time, child. I'm trying to navigate my life, my marriage, my family. As it stands right now, and I don't know how it all.
Never call me.
Right,
you took so long to text back.
Right.
I'm out of here.
Now I got to break up with you and go back home.
I'm out of here.
But I think overall, there's just been a lot of growth. I think that going back to our seasonal theme, like that's a really great thing. And staying curious. And I wanted to end here. There's something I read earlier about Leanne Yao. She runs this page called Polyphilia blog. And it says, I used to see monogamy and polyamory as opposite ends of a spectrum. But as time goes on, I'm starting to believe in many ways, healthy, consciously chosen relationships end up looking very similar, whether they're monogamous or polyamorous. And to me, I think that's really the point of this overall conversation. It's three people that have been on a journey that are figuring out what makes sense to our lives and where they are, and to the people that we can be to our partners or partner or partners at any point. And I think that the goal is just to encourage everybody to figure out what that journey and what that partnership looks like for them. So that's all the time we have this week. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.